If you want to become a better property investor, you're going to love this week's show as I share with you the 7 habits of highly successful property investors. And then I hypothetically go back in time and speak to my 21-year-old self and share with you 21 lessons I'd teach a 21-year-old, knowing what I know today.
Are you interested in property investing, success or money? Well, you're in the right place. This is the Michael Yardney podcast, where each week you'll learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in 20 minutes or less. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, who has once again been voted Australia's leading property investment advisor. That's the 4th time he's won a similar award in the last 6 years.
Hi and welcome to this week's show, and thanks for tuning in again and allowing me to share how to become more successful in property and in all elements of your life. That's what we're going to talk about today. Maybe you've wondered how you can become more successful at property or at business or in other elements of your life. Well, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, so they're very much intertwined. Today I'm going to share this with you in 2 parts. The first half is going to be about the 7 habits of highly successful property investors. And interestingly, it has very little to do with choosing the right property or being at the right time of the property cycle. So there'll be something in it for you. And in the second half of this week's show, I'm going to go through an exercise I wish I could have done earlier in my life. I'm going to go through the exercise of going back to my 21-year-old self and teaching me the lessons that I would have liked to know then with the knowledge I've got today. Now, boy, wouldn't that be fun to be able to do? But hopefully during that chat, you're going to get some insights into elements of success in all areas of your life. So let's get on with the show. Have you noticed how some people seem to rise to the top of their chosen field or journey even higher up the property ladder, while others, I guess they just consistently get the same average results? Now, way back in the 1990s, management guru Stephen Covey explained what he believes to be the defining characteristics that he distinguished of highly effective people. And I remember reading that book many years ago, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's still a modern day business classic. Now, not surprisingly, the 7 habits Covey suggested we should aspire to if we want to replicate the achievements of others are also very important in the business of property investment. So today's lesson I'd like to share with you is how to use those 7 habits of highly effective business people to be a highly effective property investor. So let's go through those habits one by one. I'll tell you what Stephen Covey had to say about them, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. So habit number 1 was be proactive. Covey said life simply isn't a series of events that happen to us. He said, in every moment you're faced with a choice and an opportunity to either move towards your life purpose or away from it. You've got a choice of having a positive or a negative attitude. You can choose to take control or be controlled. This is about either taking responsibility for your own destiny or being overtaken by the actions of others, and in doing so, becoming a victim. So how does this relate to property investors? Well, you've already heard in episode 1 of the Michael Yardney podcast, and if you haven't listened to it, go back and download episode 1. I explained to you how you've got to become the pilot of your life and not the passenger. You're where you are because of all the things you've chosen to do and all the things you've chosen not to do. So either you run the day or the day runs you. Habit number 2 from Stephen Covey was begin with the end in mind. Now, I like that one. But he says by focusing on your desired outcome, you're going to be compelled to lead yourself towards these goals, thus developing the habit of personal leadership. Covey says the key is in unblocking all those distractions that inhibit you from moving forward by instead concentrating your efforts on relevant actions to propel you forward. Begin with the end in mind. Well, as a property investor, you also have to set yourself long-term goals. For many of us, it's financial independence. Maybe it's choices in life. You've got to have a written plan. You've got to know exactly what size asset base you require. And then you've got to have a strategy to get you there. It's easy for successful investors to make their investment decisions in light of their goals and not be distracted by the short-term market noise. The third habit of highly successful people, according to Stephen Covey, is they put first things first. Covey said, once you've established attainable goals, then you must develop the habit of planning and implementing activities to enable you to reach them. Importantly, he says, you need to learn how to prioritise actions to reflect your values and your life purpose. He says, this is the art of manifesting your ideas into physical reality by taking a step-by-step approach. Well, what does all that mean for property investors? In my mind, it means keep the big picture in mind and don't be afraid to say no when so-called opportunities don't fit in with your plan. I've often said I've made more money by saying no to deals than by saying yes to them. It means that you've got to take personal responsibility because while you can't change the circumstances, the cycle, the market, you can change yourself. That's something you can control. According to Stephen Covey, the fourth habit of highly effective people is they think win-win. He says more's to be gained from life through cooperation than competition. And that's also true for property investors. Win-win not only applies to negotiation, but in fact to all elements of your life. Learn how to be happy with what you have while you pursue what you want. The fifth habit of highly effective people, according to Stephen Covey, is they first seek to understand and then be understood. What he said is most people engage in conversation to be heard rather than to be understood. Look, you know what that's like. Instead of hearing what somebody is saying, we spend our listening time, thinking about what we're going to say as soon as we've got a chance to reply. In doing so, we place our philosophies on others without truly hearing what the other people have got to say. And as a consequence, we go through life missing out on valuable insights. I see this all the time in property investors. A lot of the potential clients who come to Metropole have what I call confirmation bias, which is the tendency to begin with the answer that they want, and then they search out evidence to support their preconceived idea. They're either wanting to buy off the plan or cash flow positive properties or something that's against our strategy, and they try hard to convince us, try hard to convince themselves that that's the right answer. The lesson here is to be skeptical of your preconceptions and try and disprove your own theories rather than continuously defend them. That's a good lesson. Another one, habit 6, is to synergize. Covey says creative cooperation amongst humans allows us to uncover new solutions to old problems. As a property investor, it's really much the same. There's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. Every successful property investor I know turns to a proficient team of consultants for advice and to mentors for inspiration and counsel. So my recommendation to you is to surround yourself with a team of people who are going to lift you up rather than negative Nellies who are going to drag you down. Now, as a mentor for, over 2,000 people over the last decade, I'd love to be your mentor. You can always go to my mentorship program at michaelyardney.com.au. Get yourself a good mentor, somebody who's achieved what you want to achieve. And if you're looking for a good team of wealth professionals to surround yourself with, why not have a chat with my team at Metropole? We've been involved in over $2 billion worth of property transactions. I think we know something. The last habit I want to share with you, habit number 7 from Stephen Covey, is sharpen the saw. What he's saying is that your greatest asset is yourself. So to be effective, you must look after the tools you've got control over, your mind, your body, your spirit. He says you should maintain a balance in all that you do and never stop learning. Well, that's got universal application in all areas of your life, hasn't it? Not just in property investing. I guess the best investment you can make to ensure your success is in your own wisdom. Don't be afraid to spend or invest money on your education and be prepared to learn not only from your victories, but also from your mistakes and those of others. Well, there you have it. To become financially independent, you must follow these habits, the habits of successful investors, successful business people, successful entrepreneurs, those who've already achieved what you want to achieve. I'm suggesting that over time you should turn part of your income into capital by saving and investing, and then slowly build your asset base by reinvesting, and eventually you're going to get the financial independence you desire by following the 7 habits of highly effective investors. We're coming up to the break now, but stick around because in a moment I'm going to share with you 21 things I'd tell myself when I was a 21-year-old if I could go back in a time capsule and have a chat. Now, Wish I knew those things then. Maybe you'd get some benefit knowing them today.
If you're looking to get started in property or to grow your existing portfolio, turn to someone you can trust for independent advice. The team at Metropole Property Strategists have been involved in over $2 billion worth of property transactions, creating wealth for their clients, and they can do the same for you. They don't sell property, so their advice is independent and unbiased. Metropole can devise a strategy, their buyer's agents will buy your property for you, or you could use their renovations team, property development or portfolio management services. Arrange a time for an obligation-free chat at metropole.com.au. Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
What would you tell yourself if you could go back in time and meet your younger self? What advice would you give yourself to make your future easier? I remember in the late 1990s at a 5-day seminar in Coolum that cost me $10,000, but that changed my life. I went through this exercise and it was very interesting. So in today's mindset message, I'm going to actually take you through the exercise of some of the things I'd have told myself if I could go back, and why don't you think about how this could apply to you? So here's some of the things I would tell my younger self if I could go back in time. The first thing I'd teach them was learn from your mistakes, except that you're going to make lots of mistakes along the way. They're inevitable, but always remember to learn from your mistakes and keep growing. Number 2, I'd teach myself to love change. That's one thing you can always count on, change. It's going to happen and you can't avoid it. It won't be easy, but change happens for a reason, so learn to be okay with it. I teach my younger self to say no more often. You don't always have to say yes when people ask you for something or when people ask you to do something, and you definitely don't have to say yes to all those so-called great opportunities that come your way. I've made more by saying no to things than saying yes to all those perceived investment and business opportunities that have been put in front of me. I'd also teach my younger self to focus on becoming good at one thing. You see, successful people specialise. They don't try to be the jack of all trades. So I'd say focus on what you're really good at. Focus on just a few things, because hard work's wasted if it's scattered in many directions. I'd also teach myself to tell people how I feel. Never underestimate the power of giving a good compliment. Make people around you feel good. People seem to have a way of remembering people who make them feel special. I tell myself, if somebody's hurt your feelings, be honest with them. And if you hurt somebody's feelings, don't be scared to apologise. And don't be scared to tell people, including your parents, you love them. Life's too short not to say it, and you may never really know when you can have an opportunity to tell them how you feel again. The other lesson I'd mention is don't worry so much. Most of what we worry about never happens. Most of the things we worry about are wasted. In particular, stop worrying so much about what other people think. Letting the opinions of others influence your decisions is one of the worst things you can do. The only thing that's important is what you think and feel about yourself. I'd also teach myself to be honest with myself and with others. Always be true to yourself and to others. I'd explain that honesty gives you peace of mind, and peace of mind's priceless. And of course, I've learned over the years that relationships that aren't built on honesty don't last. I'd also explain the importance of asking great questions, to remain curious, to keep learning, listen more than you talk, and keep asking. Because some people have got incredible stories and lessons to give you. You just got to be willing to ask. I'd, of course, explain how important it is to never stop learning, to invest in yourself. Of course, your formal education is going to finish at some point, but life's a journey, and if you're not growing, you're dying. Continual personal development is the key to success. I learned that along the way, but not as early as I should have. So that's a lesson I'd love to give myself. Of course, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's going to be lots of people around you that are older and wiser than you. So I'd tell myself to make sure I learn from them. I'd actually tell myself to get good mentors early in life. Find somebody you'd like to that you'd like to be like in 20 years' time from now and make them your mentor. Don't be shy about doing this, as we all need to learn from somebody. Why not learn from the best? Another critical lesson I teach myself is the importance of being grateful. You're never going to be wealthy, no matter how much money you've got, unless you're grateful for what you've got and enjoy your life. I'd also teach myself to love myself. You can't possibly be fulfilled until you learn to be happy in your own skin. You're unique and no one's quite like you, so embrace it and love it. And interestingly, other people are only going to love you more for it. Another big lesson is don't compare your chapter 1 with somebody else's chapter 20. Stop comparing yourself with others. You don't really know what's going on in their life. And when you dig deep, you're actually going to find that everyone's got their own problems and issues. I remember many years ago somebody saying if you threw all the problems in the middle of a circle, like you throw keys in and you take out a different set of keys to go home in a different car or with a different person, if you throw everybody's problems in the circle, you'd probably go home and take yours back. You wouldn't have anybody else's. Everybody's got their problems. So rather than worrying about what other people are doing or how well they've achieved, concentrate on being a better person today than you were yesterday. If you keep doing that, you're going to be successful. Look, it may not happen straight away, but if you remain focused on improving just a little bit every day, you're going to amaze yourself. I'd also teach myself to help others become successful. I remember Kevin Spacey, and I love watching Kevin Spacey in House of Cards, and he was renowned for saying, when you reach the top, send the elevator back down. So the message, I guess, is once you find yourself in a position to help others, bring them up to where you are. Send the elevator back down. Help others get there. Mentor, give back and contribute. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm spending my time putting these podcasts together. And I'm getting very fulfilled by the great messages I get back from listeners saying how it's helped them. I'd also teach myself to enjoy the journey. If you don't enjoy the journey, you're not going to enjoy the destination. Now, another good lesson I'd be telling myself is stop making excuses. Don't be a victim. Don't blame others. I'd also remind myself of the importance of taking risks. Because as a child, we're constantly taught to avoid taking risks. But rarely do our authority figures as a child just simply tell us, go for it. Now, I'm not talking about reckless risks, but I'm suggesting not letting your fears stop you from taking calculated ones. I'd also explain the importance of choosing your friends wisely. Many of us don't actively choose the people we spend time with. They just sort of become our friends. Often these are old friends from childhood who may or may not have much in common with us anymore. But we should be careful about who we surround ourselves with, because their approach to life and their ambitions, or lack of them, are going to rub off on us. We're far more likely to chase our goals if we're surrounded by like-minded friends who are successful and motivated. A couple more lessons I'd like to tell myself, and one of them would be don't expect anything. No one owes you anything. If you want something, you've got to work for it. You're the only one responsible for your life. I'd of course teach the lesson about thinking long-term. Thinking a year in advance would have seemed a long term to me when I was young. But in fact, you've got to think 10, 20, 30 years in advance. Great things take time. Be patient, because wealth is the transfer of money from the impatient to the patient. I'd also talk about the 80-20 rule. It may look like people who work the hardest get what they want, I'd tell myself. But unfortunately, that's actually not true. I'd explain you can work little, but be smart about it and get what you want. So learn what works and do more of it and ignore the rest. And one of the lessons, maybe the last one I'd share, is make investing a priority. I'd be talking about the importance of money consciousness, investing time in learning and how money works, how money's made, how money acts, how you manage money, how you grow money. Now, interestingly, I probably wouldn't have had to spend a lot of time on teaching myself that lesson, because I knew the importance of that, or I thought I did. Probably didn't understand really the concept of the difference between assets and liabilities and the importance of building assets early in life. But money was a focus when I was young. Anyway, that's the lesson I would have said to myself, and I would have said, trust me, when you get to my age, the rules won't seem like rules in the future. They're going to be a godsend. Life is short but incredible. Wake up and enjoy the ride. That's the lessons I would have told myself if I could go back in a time machine. What would you tell yourself? What lessons have you learned? Because they're the messages that you should remind yourself about today so that you can enjoy the future. Remember, as I said in my message to myself, you've got to enjoy the journey. Otherwise, you won't enjoy the destination. Well, thanks for joining me again. I hope you learned something about the success traits of property investors and you enjoyed my chat with my 21-year-old self. Boy, it would be interesting to go back in a time capsule. Actually, I remember my 21st birthday. The best present I got at the time was Neil Diamond's Hot August Night album. That was the first time round. He's been round a couple of times since. I look forward to catching up with you again next week. But if you got some benefit from today's show, could you please do me a favour? Pass on the message to a couple of your friends through Twitter, through Facebook, through sending them the link, because I'm enjoying getting this content out and more people are joining us every week. And the more good feedback I get, the more it inspires me to keep committing to putting these shows together. I look forward to being in your ears again next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property advice. If you got value from listening to this podcast, please leave us a review and we'll read it out on a future show. Just go to michaelyardneypodcast.com/review and it will take you over to iTunes where you can enter a review and let us know what you think. We'd really appreciate it. If you don't already subscribe on iTunes or on your Android phone, you'll find us there as Michael Yardney Podcast. If you'd like to gain instant access to the show notes or a transcript of the show, head across to michaelyardneypodcast.com. Watch out for our show next week. You'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 20 minutes.